She was told to give up her seat. So she made a phone call. By the time the plane landed, she had quietly frozen $120 million of the airline's funding. They had no idea who they had just disrespected, but they were about to find out. This isn't just a story about a conflict over a first-class seat. It's a story about the vast, silent ocean of power that lies just beneath a calm surface. It's about what happens when arrogance collides with an immovable object of principle, and how one woman's quiet decision sparked a fire that would reshape an entire industry. The world is full of loud arguments and public shouting matches, but true, world-changing power, it rarely needs to raise its voice. Sometimes, it's as quiet as a single email, sent from 30,000 feet in the air. Section 1, The Underestimated Passenger. The crisp city air hummed with traffic and ambition, but Amara Ellison moved through it all with a stillness that seemed to bend the chaos around her. In the bustling airport terminal, she was just another traveler, elegant and poised, but anonymous in a well-tailored, understated charcoal suit. Her hair was styled in neat braids, and she carried a simple, unbranded leather satchel. There was nothing about her that screamed for attention. Nothing that would even hint that she was the founder and CEO of Ethelred Capital, a private equity firm managing a portfolio so vast it could alter the fortunes of entire nations with a single decision. Amara hadn't just entered the world of high finance, she'd conquered it. She built her empire from the ground up, starting with a small inheritance and an almost supernatural ability to see patterns where others only saw noise. Her colleagues spoke of her with a mix of awe and fear, calling her the Oracle for her uncanny market predictions and the Velvet Hammer for her impeccably polite, yet devastatingly effective, negotiation style. But Amara ignored the nicknames. She was driven by one core philosophy: capital isn't just a tool for profit, it's a force for accountability. In her world, money has a moral compass. Despite owning a private jet, Amara often flew commercial. She saw it as a way to stay grounded, to connect with the world her investments were shaping. It was a chance to observe, to listen, and to experience the services of the companies her firm supported, or, in some cases, was considering divesting from. Today, she was flying Globalus Airways, a legacy carrier her firm had recently injected with a significant investment. That $120 million was specifically meant for operational upgrades and improving the customer experience. Amara was flying to a conference, but she was also conducting a quiet, personal audit of her investment. She moved through the priority boarding line, her ticket for seat 2A in hand. The first-class cabin was a predictable bubble of beige leather and brushed metal, designed to insulate its occupants from the realities of travel. As Amara approached her window seat, she noticed it was already occupied. A woman in her late 50s, with a helmet of perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a face set in mild disapproval, was arranging a cashmere shawl over the seat. Amara paused, waiting patiently. A simple mistake, she assumed. After a moment, the woman looked up, her eyes flicking over Amara's simple suit and braids. Her gaze wasn't one of inquiry, but of dismissal. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her tone implying Amara was lost. "I believe you're in my seat," Amara said, her voice calm and even as she held up her boarding pass. "I have 2A. The woman, Catherine, didn't even glance at the ticket. She let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound like ice cubes rattling in an empty glass. "No, I don't think so. This is my seat. My husband is in 2C. She gestured to the man across the aisle, who was loudly finishing a phone call. "We're flying together." "I understand," Amara replied, her patience holding. "But the manifest has me in this window seat. Perhaps there was a mix-up with your booking." The husband, a large man with a florid face and an expensive watch, ended his call with a self-important huff. "What's the problem here, Katie?" "This woman thinks she's sitting here," Catherine said, waving a dismissive hand toward Amara. The man, whose name was Tom, looked Amara up and down. It was a slow, appraising look, the kind you give a piece of furniture that's out of place. Listen, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. My wife likes the window. We're Globalist Executive Platinum members. We get what we want. I'm sure there's a perfectly fine seat for you somewhere else. He didn't ask. He declared. The assumption was clear, Amara was the one who was out of place. She didn't belong in this seat, in this cabin. The injustice of it all was so casual, so profoundly arrogant, it was almost breathtaking. A young flight attendant named Ben hurried over, sensing the tension. Is there a problem, sir, ma'am? Tom took charge immediately. Yes. This passenger is confused. My wife is in 2A, I'm in 2C. We need this resolved so we can take off. Ben looked at Amara's boarding pass, and his face registered a flicker of conflict. Ma'am, your ticket is for 2A, he confirmed, then turned to Catherine. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but my manifest shows you in 4B. Catherine's face tightened. That's unacceptable. I am not sitting in the fourth row. Row 4 is still first class, ma'am, Ben offered weakly, clearly intimidated. Don't be dense, Tom snapped. My wife wants this seat. Just move her, he said, gesturing at Amara as if she wasn't there. Find her a spot in the back of first, or give her a voucher. It's not complicated. Some people, he added, with a pointed look at Amara, are just happy to be on the plane. The insult hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Other passengers were now watching. In that moment, Amara felt their eyes on her. She saw the silent calculations being made. She wasn't Amara Ellison, CEO of a financial empire. She was a black woman being told she didn't belong. Ben was visibly sweating, caught between policy and two aggressive, high-status passengers. He made the choice that thousands of service employees make every day, the path of least resistance. He turned to Amara, his expression pleading. Ma'am, he whispered. I am so sorry. We do have another seat available in row 5. It's a middle seat, but I could offer you a travel voucher for your trouble. He was asking her to absorb the injustice. He was asking her to be the one to yield. He was asking her to make their problem go away. And in that moment, something inside Amara Ellison shifted. It wasn't anger. It was something colder, clearer. It was the click of a lock falling into place. Section 2, The Quiet Calculation. Amara looked at the nervous flight attendant, at Catherine's smug face, and at Tom, who was already turning away, satisfied. She saw the entire dynamic laid bare, power, privilege, and the biases that let them function so smoothly. Her first instinct was to fight. To stand her ground, pull out her phone, and call the CEO of Globalist Airways, a man she'd met just 3 weeks prior, and have him personally intervene. The humiliation she could inflict would be swift and brutal. The thought was a flash of heat, tempting and bright. But that wasn't her way. Reacting with anger would be a shallow victory. It would make her the story, another angry black woman, causing a scene on a plane. It would solve the problem of her seat, but it would do nothing to fix the rotten culture that created it. This incident wasn't about her. It was a data point. A symptom of a deep, institutional sickness. And Amara Ellison, above all else, was an investor who acted on evidence. She gave a slow, deliberate nod to the flight attendant. Very well, she said, her voice devoid of emotion. Row 5, you said? Ben looked visibly relieved. Yes, ma'am. 5B, thank you so much for your understanding. Catherine let out a satisfied sigh and settled into seat 2A. Tom gave Amara a final, dismissive glance as she walked past, a look that said, see? That wasn't so hard. Amara made her way to seat 5B, a middle seat wedged between a man already snoring and a woman building a fortress of magazines. She stowed her satchel, buckled in, and simply sat, a portrait of unnerving composure. To everyone else, the problem was solved. For Amara, the work was just beginning. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, she calmly reached into her satchel and pulled out a slim, slate-gray laptop. It wasn't for movies. It was an encrypted, custom-built machine connected to a secure satellite link, bypassing the plane's public Wi-Fi. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with a quiet, efficient rhythm. This wasn't anger, this was strategy. The incident is trivial, she thought. A rude couple. But it's a perfect microcosm. An employee conditioned to de-escalate by penalizing the victim. Entitled customers who believe rules are for others. This isn't a customer service failure. It's a corporate culture failure. And we are invested in this culture. She pulled up the investment agreement for the Globalist Airways Fund, her eyes scanning for Clause 34.b, the ethical compliance and brand integrity mandate. It was a clause she personally insisted on, one that gave Ethelred Capital the right to suspend all further capital if the company was found to be grossly negligent. It was a weapon that had never been used. Until now. Amara began to draft an email to her executive board. The subject was simple. Urgent, suspension of Globalist Airways Fund, Tranche 2. The body was just as lean and precise. Board members. I am currently on Globalist Airways Flight 763, Seat 5B. My original, confirmed seat was 2A. I have just been subjected to a direct incident of discriminatory behavior, subsequently validated by a member of the flight crew. This incident is a clear data point demonstrating a fundamental failure in corporate culture, employee training, and brand integrity at Globalist Airways. The customer experience our investment was intended to improve is demonstrably broken. Pursuant to Clause 34.b of our investment agreement, I am ordering the immediate suspension of the upcoming $120 million tranche. Please execute protocols. A full report will be on your desks by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Regards. Amara Ellison. CEO, Ethelred Capital. She read it once, checking for any hint of emotion. There was none. It was a cold, factual, legally airtight declaration. With a final, decisive click, she hit send. Somewhere in a data center, automated financial protocols triggered. Legal notices were generated. A $120 million pipeline of capital, which Globalist Airways was counting on, had just been frozen solid. Amara closed her laptop, leaned her head back, and closed her eyes. Tom and Catherine were likely ordering a second glass of champagne. The plane droned on, completely oblivious to the financial earthquake triggered from a cramped middle seat in row 5. The quietest person on the plane had just made the loudest possible noise. The plane touched down smoothly. For most passengers, the journey was over. For the man in seat 2C, his world was about to end. As the aircraft taxied to the gate, he switched his phone off airplane mode, a smirk still on his face. He was about to text a colleague about his amusing flight when his screen lit up like a lightning storm. A flood of notifications. Dozens of texts. Emails with subject lines in all caps. Missed calls from his entire board. Then a news alert popped up, a nightmare in headline form. Ethelred Capital abruptly freezes massive $120 million investment in Globalist Airways, citing ethical compliance clause. The color drained from his face. His blood ran cold, $120 million. Frozen. That wasn't just a number, it was their lifeline. The funding for new fleets, for terminal renovations, for the marketing campaign that was supposed to save their struggling brand. Without it, they were finished. His hands trembled as he scrolled through a frantic message from his CFO. What the hell is happening? Ethelred just pulled the plug. They're citing Clause 34.b. Do you know anything about this? Call me now. Clause 34.b. Ethical compliance. His mind raced. What could have possibly triggered it? And then he looked up and saw her. Amara Ellison was walking calmly down the jet bridge. She wasn't looking at him. She was just walking. A sickening wave of realization washed over him. The woman from seat 2A. The calm woman he had dismissed, had let his wife humiliate. It couldn't be. He scrambled to grab his bags. "Catherine, stay here," he barked, his voice choked with panic. He rushed onto the jet bridge, catching up to Amara at the terminal. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice a desperate croak. "You." From the flight. Amara stopped and turned, her eyes cool and steady. "I'm Richard Sterling," he said, the name tasting like ash. "I'm the CEO of Globalist Airways." He said it as if the title could somehow fix this. "I know," Amara said simply. 2 words. They hit him like a physical blow. She knew. The entire time, she knew exactly who he was. "What have you done?" he stammered. "Ethelred Capital, that's your firm, isn't it? This can't be because of a seat." Amara looked at him, her quiet authority making his own position feel like a paper crown. "It was never about the seat, Mr. Sterling," she said. "It was about what the seat represented. I had a front-row view of your company's culture. I saw how your highest status customers behave and how your employees accommodate prejudice to de-escalate. You didn't show me a customer service issue. You showed me a profound ethical rot. You showed me that my investment is in a company whose principles don't align with my firm's. My name is Amara Ellison." He stared at her, the name finally connecting to the face he'd only seen on the cover of Fortune. Amara Ellison. The Velvet Hammer. "You sat there, in a middle seat," he whispered, horrified. "Yes," she replied. "And from that middle seat, I made a decision based on the evidence you and your wife so generously provided. You run a company where dignity is conditional. That is not a company Ethelred Capital will fund. I wasn't just a passenger on your plane today, Mr. Sterling. I was your investor. And you failed the audit." She gave him a final, brief nod and walked away, disappearing into the terminal crowd. She left him standing there, frozen, as the empire he thought he commanded crumbled around him. The aftermath was swift. By the next morning, Globalist Airways stock had plummeted, wiping out over $1 billion in market value. The story leaked and became a media sensation. The arrogant CEO who didn't recognize one of the most powerful black women in finance and paid the ultimate price. #boycott globalist trended for weeks. Richard Sterling was fired within 48 hours. His career was over. But Amara's work wasn't done. Freezing the fund wasn't punishment, it was leverage. Ethelred Capital now held the fate of Globalist Airways in its hands. Under a new CEO, the airline came to the negotiating table. Amara didn't attend. She sent her team with non-negotiable demands. First, a complete overhaul of employee training. Second, a new, zero-tolerance code of conduct. Third, and this was her masterstroke, Globalist was to establish a $20 million grant program. The Ellison Grant would fund scholarships for women and people of color to become pilots, engineers, and airline executives. The industry wouldn't just be reformed, it would be remade from the inside out. Only after these conditions were legally binding did Ethelred agree to release the $120 million. The money was no longer just an investment, it was a guarantee of change. Conclusion. The story of Amara Ellison and Globalist Airways is a powerful lesson. It teaches us that the greatest power isn't always loud, sometimes it's the quiet, calculated decision made in the face of disrespect. Amara didn't just win an argument, she forced an entire industry to look in the mirror. While this story serves as a parable of modern justice, it's important to remember it's rooted in a growing reality. In the real world of aviation, pioneers are breaking barriers every day. Leaders like Shirexia Rall, who in 2024 was named the president and CEO of Western Air, the largest privately owned airline in the Bahamas. Her appointment places her among the small but growing number of female airline CEOs worldwide, proving that women, and specifically black women, are ascending to the highest levels of power and influence. These real-world achievements give stories like Amara's their profound weight. They signal a shift, a world where underestimation is becoming an increasingly costly mistake. What happened on that flight was more than a confrontation, it was the turning of a tide. It was a single, quiet moment that sent a $120 million message to the world. The next time you tell someone to give up their seat, you better be sure you know who you're talking to. If you felt the satisfaction of justice served in this story, do us a favor and hit that like button. We want to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done in Amara's position? Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone was completely underestimated? Share your story. And if you want more narratives of quiet power and ultimate justice, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.